but still being forced to continue this rehabilitation program at his own expense.
That has a public benefit, in fact, a rehabilitation program. So what is your objection, the fact that they were siphoning off money?
Yeah.
It's not the church who's doing it.
The church was not funding.
The church did not fund this man.
No.
This man had to...
Commercial enterprise.
Had to pay a tithe.
We have to spell this out for the Hansard record, though.
Understood.
Yeah.
So you've got to make that point. You've got to make the connection to the reference.
Yeah, okay. So the church was saying he had to pay a tithe. The church itself did not fund what he was doing in the time that I was actually the executive director for Narconon for the Asia Pacific area.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say something, please?
If you wish to, Janet.
I would, thank you. I understand that it's been presented to you that they have drug education, volunteer ministers, a whole list of things that look amazing. You know, the public benefit's so obviously there. But it's like McDonald's telling me that their salads are really healthy, and if I eat them, I'm going to look amazing. You know, there's one thing that's being projected, and it's only a public benefit test where they actually have to be looked at. What do the volunteer ministers do? What successes did they bring? Who did they actually help? Who are these people? Right now, the church claims a certain number of members. I know in Canberra they claim 5,000, and I can tell you for a fact that is completely untrue. You're looking at maybe 50 if you're lucky here in Canberra. So if it's 5,000, well, why aren't the 5,000 here? Yes, we've got volunteer ministers, we've got drug rehabilitation programs, we run Criminon, we do this great stuff. Provide the evidence. Is what they're doing now, does it outweigh the harm that it's caused to so many people, not just ex-members, but the ex-members' families, friends, you know, your ability to work afterwards? Are we actually, you know, out there doing what we should have been doing? So only a public benefit test can actually monitor that, rather than my statement of it was bad for me, or their statement, we're amazing. Only something like this can actually really look at that.
And looking at all the income that the church makes, how much of that income does go to these charitable type activities? That's where you would find that really the public benefit is just nothing to speak of, and it's lip service.
Okay, thank you. Senator Xenophon.
I'm very concerned about time constraints, but if I could just drill down in the context of the bill and a public benefit test and having regulations to determine whether something is in the public benefit or not. Mr. Anderson, you previously said publicly that you and your family spent a lot of money on the Church of Scientology for courses. Can you just, in what region, how much money did you spend?
Look, it would, to encompass all of the time that we spent, probably close to $450,000, but I'm light on by comparison to another member at this table. that would be me. That would be this.
How much did you spend, Mr.
Between $1 million and 1.2 between my wife and I.
Okay. Can I just ask, is that because under the rules of the Church of Scientology, in order to progress further, you have to pay for courses because they're strictly copyright? Is that the case?
Well,
partially.
Yes.
Partially, but if I can explain.
Interrupt you, kid. There's a well-known factor in Scientology, and there's this definition, which there's policy on it. It is exchange. You get nothing for nothing. If you don't contribute money there to the organisation, you get nothing back. And in fact, charity, as far as the organisation is concerned, L. Ron Hubbard wrote a policy reference in relation to, and he mentioned this thing about charity. He said charity benefits the person that is giving it.
Okay.
And so I'll explain that a little bit because it's important. The view is that within the church, if you're giving something away and you're not getting something back in exchange for it, then you're doing the other person that you're giving that item to harm.
Which is almost the reverse commonly held view of charity.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's policy written on it, right? And I could get that reference for the...
If you could, I think that would be useful for the committee. Can I just... Sorry, Mr. Mackey.
Yeah. How did it come that we spent so much? And It's an interesting thing. When you start in Scientology, it begins very cheaply. The further you go, the more value the church places on the services it delivers. My wife and I have got onto and spent a lot of time on the upper level of the bridge. It's a very long level. I spent 15 years on it. And in a way, you're a captive audience. And the methodology of extracting money was basically the service became more and more expensive by the year. And further, there was a tremendous amount of pressure because you were supposedly attaining such a huge level of freedom, and every day you were getting this spiritual freedom. And this is supposed to be the route to total freedom. The bridge is the route to total freedom. And of course, that's not going to come at a low cost. You're then a captive audience and expected to contribute more and more to help people join onto the bridge or the route through Scientology to total spiritual freedom. And in a way, you're a prisoner of your own goal as you go through this.
Can I just raise two other questions again because of time constraints, and of course your submissions are in evidence for the committee. Could any of you explain that there is, I think, what's referred to as WOG justice? How does the organisation that you're involved with treat the issue of our judicial system, Australia's judicial system, in relation to this? And also, can any of you explain the doctrine of fair game? Is that, because I think there are, the organisation says that, does that not apply now, or does that still apply in your understanding?
Our understanding is fair game exists.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially since November we've copped some of it ourselves, so we know it exists.
Well, can you explain that to the committee, fair game?
Probably Kevin's the person to...
Well, I just want to make a statement to your first question, which was in regard to the WOG, the separation between WOG, which is with the exception of a few people at the back, there's a few people at the back of the hall here. There's all the rest of us are WOGs. We're ex-Scientologists, but we're now WOGs. We joined the WOG class, so to speak. Now, what that means, it refers to raw meat, your people to be taken into the church and sold services to and converted into being a Scientologist. Now, WOG justice, Mr. Hubbard wrote about the concept of the church justice system as being superior, really, to anything that exists in the WOG world. And in fact, in my submission that I made, not this one, but the original submission, I pointed up that governments and WOG justice systems that exist here on behalf of the people of Australia, for example, aren't really, they're a false organisation. Hubbard talks about this, right? Because they don't really have the true technology. So that's the view. The view is that within Scientology, the Scientology technology is superior to anything that's done outside of Scientology. And in fact, just to point this up, there was an event, which is a Scientology event, and it was when there were a lot of organisations being supposedly going to bigger sizes in the US, and they were building these ideal organisations. And one of the mayors of a particular area, I'd have to research to find the exact place, but anyway, he made the point that he now felt that their city was on the church's organising board. Now, the church has this big organising board. I won't go into detail, it would bore you. But the fact is that he now felt that they were on the church's organising board. In other words, the way the whole church is structured, the whole of civilization is actually on their organising board, and they are superior and senior to governments. And
so you ignore court hearings, or they're not accepted?
They have court hearings.
Avoid at all costs.
You would not...
Any justice you need, they want you to deal with it internally within the organisation. You only deal with justice systems or authorities outside the organisation if you absolutely have to. And then if you're going to, you've got to be in coordination with the Office of Special Affairs, because it's considered a risk. They consider that, there's a general consideration that anything WOG justice, WOG authorities, they consider them with disdain because, and also inferior